Contrary to popular belief, AP exams are not curved. So hypothetically, every single test taker could earn a score of 5 on their exam. And that is what I did this year on every single one of my AP exams. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down some generic study tips for each of the exams that I took this year. So if it's your first time taking AP exams this upcoming school year, you are in the right place. Okay, let's start with the generic tips. So obviously you're going to want to learn your content, but not just the content, you need to learn the format of these exams. Because what separates a 4 from a 5 is knowing the typical patterns that College Board is going to throw at you. You need to know how they're going to be testing your knowledge. You can do this by literally going online to the College Board website and looking at all of the rubrics or past FRQs. This information is public and you need to be using it to your best advantage. And second, pay attention in class. I know this is obvious, but you might not realize it, that your teachers are actually mimicking the exam whether they mean to or not. Typically, you can pick up the sort of exam questions from your in-class tests or from the way that your teacher talks. There are certain keywords that are going to show up on the exam frequently vocabulary-wise that you might pick up in class, so make sure that you are paying attention. Lastly, when it comes to review, start early. I personally started in February with doing as minimal as 30 minutes a day, and as I got closer and closer to the exam, I started to pick up the pace because starting early and gradually increasing helps you to avoid burnout. So definitely start early so you don't have to cram and stress yourself out when you get to April and May. Okay, let's get into Calc BC. For Calc BC, you really want to study those BC specific topics like Taylor series and polar curves because those are the ones that you're pretty much guaranteed to encounter on the exam as they are what separates Calc BC from Calc AB. With series, you are going to see a series FRQ, and it's going to be number 6, but you don't have to go in order on the FRQs. For example, I actually jumped to FRQ 6 first and got that one out of the way because it had a lot of parts and series can be time consuming. So after I did that, it really gave me a lot less stress on me and I was able to breeze through the remaining FRQs. You also want to know the difference between calculator active and non-calculator questions because the way that they are asked, especially multiple choice, they can be different while testing the same skills. So you want to practice those. On AP Classroom, they have a bunch of diagnostics you can take with active and non-calculator active questions so that you can gauge yourself on how well you are doing with those. It will give you like a breakdown of which specific units you are struggling in. And if you don't have access to AP Classroom, then you can also use Khan Academy. It's not the best, but it's pretty similar in the diagnostic reports aspect, but obviously AP Classroom, you want to use that because it comes directly from College Board and they pull directly from past exams. However, AP Classroom, some of the diagnostics are teacher locked, so you need your teacher to open them, which is why I'm mentioning Khan Academy. I also have some practice questions, so I'm going to try and post those as soon as I get the chance. If I make like a more in-depth video on Calc BC itself, it'll definitely be in the description because practice questions are the best way to prepare and to practice for this exam. Okay, let's get into the most requested one on my TikTok, and that is AP Chem. AP Chem can be brutal if you don't know the format, but it's not that bad. So with the multiple choice, there are 60, and I know that can be overwhelming, but it's not that bad because actually 10 of those questions are experimental questions, so you don't lose anything if you get them wrong, but you also don't gain anything if you get them right. However, you don't really know which ones are experimental until after the exam if they choose to release that information. But I feel like knowing that really helped me to reduce some stress because I realized, oh, I don't have to get all 60 of these correct. Additionally, like always, there is no penalty for guessing. So if you're in a time crunch and you flagged a few questions and you really just can't get them, please just guess. It's better than leaving it blank on a multiple choice question. Now, with the FRQ, there are 7 of them. The first 3 are going to be the long FRQs, and those are the ones where you have the bulk of the points. So you really want to do well here. However, these FRQs tend to encompass like all of the units together, and sometimes you're not going to be able to do a certain part of the question, but the following part will be like, using your answer from part A, answer this. What you're going to do in that scenario, if you really can't get part A, but you know how to do part B, you can make up a number or make up an element and write like in your answer, assuming that the answer to part A is blank and solve part B that way. And if you do that with sound logic and correct math or whatever they're testing, you will get full credit for part B, regardless of an incorrect part A. So really, you should not be leaving questions blank that you know how to do, but you're just missing an answer from a prior part, because you can still get full credit for that question. That's something that really helped me when I was practicing for the exam to reduce stress. And then with the remaining FRQs, they're usually pretty quick. It'll usually be like some kind of acid-base type question, or maybe even like a lab question. So lab questions are very important because they will usually be pretty straightforward, like identifying like how to carry out an investigation, a titration, or like how to prepare a solution. And these are things that you need to know how to do. So during your in-class labs, even if your teacher isn't really strict, you need to be paying attention to the names of the glassware that you're encountering and basic things like preparing a solution, because these are easy points, but they are very nitpicky about how you are answering these lab questions. So you don't want to miss out on lab question points because they are pretty easy. You will know how to do these things if you pay attention during lab in class. Another thing is that you are allowed to use your own TI-84 calculator. And something that a lot of people don't know is that these calculators come with a periodic table app installed. So you could, if the in website periodic table is lagging for you, you can use your calculator to open up a periodic table and quickly check something. It doesn't have like, it's not full of answers, like it's not like cheating. It just has like, like atomic number, name, things like that. So that is a resource that could help you. Yeah, you are allowed to use your own calculator and you can do what you want with that information. Okay, AP Leg. Those rubrics are your best friends. On the exam, you're not going to get the rubric, but at the same time, you kind of do. Because in the prompt for each of the essays, it gives you like a big blurb listing all of the requirements that they want you to have. It's just not in the typical rubric format. With all of your Lang essays, you don't have to be fancy smancy. You don't have to be throwing out these words, because that could actually hurt you if you were just trying to, if it's really obvious that you're trying to get that sophistication point, it's just going to feel inauthentic. Another thing is that you have to be really concise. I know that we are taught in school to use that typical 5-paragraph essay strategy, but you are going to be writing 3 essays back to back, and your AP exam grader is going to be grading hundreds of essays. You don't want to bore them, and you also don't want to run out of time. So try to just hit all the points and be concise, but at the same time, you need to get the point across, and you will be fine. Something that a lot of people don't know is that you are not required to have a conclusion. Nowhere on any of the rubrics does it tell you that you need to have a conclusion. Obviously, you shouldn't be ending abruptly, but if you are running out of time to get one of your essays started, just kind of wrap your ideas up together in like a few short sentences and move on. They're not going to dock you for points just because you didn't have some fancy conclusion on your synthesis essay. If you've taken APUSH but you haven't taken Lang, something that helped me was that the synthesis essay in Lang is pretty much just an English DBQ, so they're very similar. If you're good at DBQs, you'll be good at these. And with the multiple choice, they switched it down from 5 answer choices to 4, so it was actually a bit easier this year. And there's typically going to be those 2 answer choices that are just ridiculous that you can weed out, so you're usually just looking between like 2 answers, and it can be a little bit confusing sometimes, but I found that it's often the one that, it'll be like the one answer is more like specific than the other, or the other answer is like more broad and encompasses everything. So that's how I usually like narrow it down. Okay, APUSH is very content heavy, but you need to make sure you aren't just memorizing things. You need to like contextualize and actually understand the events you were talking about. Also, something that a lot of people worry about is dates and names, but dates are not that really important. Sure, you should know the general flow, but you don't need to know like exactly what day this battle took place. Just know like the order of the battles when you're talking about a war. Also, with names, it's better to know their last name correctly than their first name, because there are a lot of like, Johns in history, like they don't know who you're talking about if you just only remember the John. However, if you say like Madison did this in your DBQ or whatever, they're going to know who you were talking about. So I would prioritize like knowing their last name. With the multiple choice, a lot of it is like cause and effect and things like that. And they will typically actually give you like a passage and you have to answer like questions based on that. So these passages are really helpful because they can help jog your memory if you forgot about a certain period. And oftentimes you don't even need to have like that good of a background to answer some of these questions. Like it'll be like reading comprehension. Okay, my camera died in that bit, but I also wanted to say for DBQs, LEQs, and SAQs, you need to know those rubrics really well. And don't stress out about, oh my gosh, what are they going to throw at me? What are they going to throw at me? Because with DBQs, when you read those documents, that's going to help jog your memory back. Additionally, with LEQs, you get choice. There's got to be one of those prompts that you are able to answer best. And with SAQs, it's, those first two, you usually get some kind of like document or something to help jog your memory a bit. And with that last choice one, you can pick the one that suits you best. Also, something I did was during the multiple choice, if there was like an event that I saw, I was kind of making note of that so I can remember in the free response, oh, I forgot about this earlier, but now I remember about this. I'm going to use that as my outside evidence if I don't see it in the documents for my DBQ. Or, oh, I'm going to talk about this in my SAQ because it made me think of this. Like, it's within the time period. Why not use it? Like, there are so many little nuggets of information packed in those MCQ prompts and answer choices that you can carry on over with you to the FRQ section. So if you are stressed, don't worry. The test is literally designed to jog your memory and help you out a bit. So those are the strategies that helped me. I really hope that some of this was helpful to you. And if this helped, I guess, and subscribe for more. And if you want something more specific broken down, please let me know in the comments because I want this channel to be beneficial to everyone and I want to be as clear and concise as possible. So thank you.